So you want to play White Mage. I applaud your decision. White Mage gets a reputation for being the most basic healer, and you know what? That's accurate. But that does not mean it's not enjoyable, so let's not waste any more time and get started with the abilities. First, all White Mages have access to the Lily Gauge at level 52. This resource will allow you to use instant cast heals. You have a maximum of 3 lilies that charge for every 20 seconds in combat. All White Mages have access to 3 stages of Cure. Cure 1 is the most basic one. You're not really going to use this, save for emergencies, or when you're out of other options. Cure 2 costs 1000 MP, and like Cure 1, save this for when it is the only spell available, shouldn't be your go-to single target. Cure 3 is an AoE heal with a 10-yard radius around your target. This is an amazing burst heal costing 1500 MP. Don't spam it, use it sparingly. Medica is a 15-yard AoE heal. Much like Cure 1 and 2, this is something you're going to use when you have no other options. Medica 2 has a 20-yard radius, use this for AoE damage, as it also gives you a heal over time effect. One tip I like to give is to start casting when you see a raid wide coming. Fights are pretty well telegraphed in 14, so you should learn when damage is coming within a few pulls. Afflatus Solus costs 1 lily and is an instant cast cure with 800 potency. This is your go-to single target heal, and Afflatus Rupture also costs 1 lily, and this is also instant cast with 400 potency. This is the AoE version of Solus and is your go-to AoE heal, but for larger damage, personally, I like to use it in tandem with a Medica 2. Regen puts a heal over time effect over the target and is our strongest heal. This is great for dungeons, but also progression, particularly in raid scenarios. It's great for movement, seeing as it has no cast. One side note, this will not proc Paladin's Divine Veil, so please keep that in mind. Now we're starting to get into the actual cooldowns, starting with the Size, which is also off the GCD. A Size will actually restore 5% of your MP. This is something you're going to want to use on cooldown, seeing as it works as an AoE heal and damage spell. But if you see it lining up with big group damage or scenarios where everyone's grouped up, use it then. Benediction will restore all of the target's HP and it's a 2-minute cooldown. If you have a Dark Knight and they aren't that confident, might not be the worst idea to save it, but as of 6.3, you should be fine saving it for emergencies. Asylum is a target area AoE heal that gives players regen, another AoE ability to save for group damage. Presence of Mind reduces your spell cast and recast time by 20 seconds. If you play WoW, think of it like a haste buff. It has a 2-minute cooldown, and there's a lot of damage potential, so try to save it for 2-minute burst windows. Tetragrammaton is an off GCD heal with 700 potency and a 60-second cooldown. This is great for spot healing. Definitely don't be afraid to use this one. Thin Air has 2 charges with a 60-second cooldown and makes your next action cost no MP. Be sure to use this one. A lot of players, myself included, at times are afraid or forget that cooldowns like this exist. This is great for resurrecting players and also casting big heals in those emergency scenarios. Divine Benison is off the GCD and gives a shield to a player. You can use this to help mitigate tank busters, or if you're in a dungeon or extreme and someone gets a Vuln stack, perfect for those. Aqua Veil is also off the GCD and reduces damage taken by 15% to the target. Use it in the same way as Divine Benison. Liturgy of the Bell is my personal favorite cooldown. With a 3-minute cooldown, you place a bell at the target location. The bell has 5 stacks, and every time damage is detected, it will tick, healing everyone. If there are stacks left when you cast it again, or the timer runs out, you will get extra healing off of that tick. This is an amazing cooldown. Personally, I love using it on big dungeon pulls, and on P7S, it makes an amazing cooldown because the raid wide in that fight has a pretty big dot. I actually forgot to include Temperance in the video, so I have to edit it in last minute. Temperance, 120-second cooldown. This is your wings. It's going to increase all the healing you do, as well as reduce damage taken for all party members. Pretty self-explanatory. This is one of your big healing cooldowns. Save it for big damage. When it comes to healing cooldowns, it's something you kind of work out with your group, so just communicate, make sure you know when to use it. Fairly straightforward. So I did not only forget Temperance, I also forgot Plenary Indulgence. This will grant confession to self and nearby party members, and basically every time you heal, you're going to heal more. So 60-second cooldown, another cooldown that you want to plan around with your party members. So that's all the healing abilities. What about damage? Well, it's actually pretty straightforward. At level 90, you should be casting Glare 3. As a general rule for all healers, if you're not healing, you're damaging. Remember, always be casting. Dia is your dot. Refresh about 2 to 3 seconds. Keep this up for the entire encounter. Holy is your AoE spell. This will also stun enemies, making it very good for dungeons. And lastly, we have Afflatus Misery. If you spend enough lilies, you will get 1 blood lily, allowing you to cast a spell with a whopping 1200 potency to the first target and half for the rest. Use this on cooldown. I cannot stress the importance of healer damage enough in this game. So those are all the White Mage abilities, but there are still the abilities that all healers get. However, seeing as I already have a dedicated healer guide showing off all these abilities, I'll be rapid firing it. Repose will put targets asleep. As of 6.3, there's no use for this ability. Asuna is your Dispel. If you see a white line above the debuff, use it. Lucid Dream restores MP. Use this on cooldown. Swift Cast allows you to insta cast the next spell. Try to save this for raise. Cure Cast is your knockback resistance, and Rescue is way too much fun not to abuse. Lastly, every healer gets raised. So, deep breaths. I know that was a lot, but before we get into the rotation, I would like to ask you to drop a like on the video. Guides like this take a lot of effort, so if you could support the channel and like the video, I would really appreciate it. Thank you, and on to the rotation. And the good news about the rotation is that it's actually pretty simple. So the standard opener is as follows. Precast your Tincture, 3 seconds before pulling, precast Glare 1.5 seconds, followed by Dia, 2 more glares, weave in Presence of Mind, followed by another glare, weed by size, followed by another glare. It's pretty simple, and in general, like I said before, if you aren't healing, you're damaging. So spin to win, spend your lilies. With healers, there really isn't a rotation. It just depends on the fight in your team. Now, there are other openers, but seeing as this is more of a beginner guide, I'm not going to go into those. The standard one should be fine for majority of scenarios. If you are interested, I'm going to drop a link to the balance website. This is how I do most of my research for these videos, and you'll find all the advanced knowledge there. As far as consumables go, Carrot Pudding and Mind Tinctures are your best bet. And for stat priorities, it's going to be magic damage, over mind, over crit, over spell speed, over direct hit. Again, link to the balance in the description. They will go over all of this in more detail, as well as telling you what gear is your best in slot. So that's going to do it. White Mage is a class I personally love. I hope you enjoy it too. Thank you for watching, and take care.